All right, welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. As people start to file in, we'll give everyone a couple of minutes here to jump online. But as people start to file in, we would love for you guys to take a minute and take the survey. It'll be down in the chat. If you look down at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat function. There should be a link to a Google survey. It's just one question. So if you can take a minute to do that while we let everyone hop online, that would be fantastic. And then we'll kick this thing off and get going. For those of you that are here, hopefully you know what you're signed up for. This is tonight's webinar with Huntin. We're going to be going over application season and how to build a strategy from scratch. We've got the guys here from Huntin as well. We've got Austin, Jared, and Garth. They've done a great job this year helping us with some really amazing information on these webinars. So you're in for a treat tonight. We've got a lot of information to go over. But like I said, we're going to give everyone another minute here to log in. If you're just joining us, please check out the chat and take the quick one question survey we've got about application season. The link to the survey is in the chat down in the center of your console. Just a reminder for everyone too, your video will be off and your voice will be muted, so no accidents can happen. No one can jump in on the conversation. We do have a chat down there if you want to say hi to people and say hello, and we also have a question section where you can actually throw some Q&A for later. So we'll do a Q&A session at the end of this. So if you've got questions that come up, throw them in that Q&A widget down at the bottom. If you've got chat and you just want to chat with some of the other people on the call, feel free to do that in the chat. Now, if you have Q&A too about personal questions that personally relate to you, your point balance, your state, what you want to personally apply for, this is not really the time to do that. We want to answer questions that can help the most amount of people. So if you got those personal questions and you're an onX Elite member, send those on over to the guys at Huntin. Once they jump on, they can let you know what email to send those over to. We can help you answer those questions as much as possible. We'll go over a lot of that information tonight, though. So hopefully by the end of this, most of those questions will be answered. All right, looks like we're about 3 minutes in, so we're going to kick this thing off. If you've taken the survey, thanks, I appreciate it. Huntin guys, if you want to go on to the next slide, we'll start there and we'll get this thing rocking and rolling. All right, like I said, welcome everybody. This is tonight's webinar is about application season and how to build a strategy. I'm Paul from onX. We've also got Austin, Jared, and Garth from the Huntin. They're going to walk us through a couple scenarios on how to actually build an application strategy from scratch. Just a quick reminder for those of you that maybe missed when I said it the first time, your video is turned off and you're muted by default, so no accidents there can happen. We'll also do a Q&A session at the end of this webinar. So if you've got questions that pop up, throw them in that Q&A chat at the bottom. There's a Q&A and there's a chat, so throw them in the Q&A. If you just want to say hello and tell people where you're from, throw that in the chat. If there's any personal questions you have for onX, please hold those to the end or email us, our CX team, at help@onxmaps.com. Also, at the end of this webinar, we're going to be doing a giveaway, and we've got a promotion for you guys. So make sure you stick around to the end. And then the last thing we'll end with is that Q&A. So definitely stick around. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. So without too much more ado, I'm going to hand this over to the Huntin guys. They can introduce themselves and tell them a little bit about yourself, and we can get this thing rolling.
Okay. Welcome aboard, everybody. We appreciate you joining here tonight. I'm Jared Lyle. I'm the CEO here at Huntin and a part-time hunt advisor, right, Garth?
That's right.
I mean, barely part-time. Anyway, really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this kind of stuff. It's what we live to do. It honestly is what gets us out of bed every morning, both personally and professionally. So just honored to be a part of this tonight, and hope we can help you guys out with long-term, short-term, and mid-term strategies.
Yep. And I'm Garth Jensen. I've been a hunt advisor here for 9 years now. This is building strategies is what I help our members do. Seems like on a daily basis, especially this time of year, just constantly going over how to figure out where they should be putting their points, if they've got points, things like that. So I'm pretty excited for this webinar. Just kind of share some of the stuff that we go through and how we plan our own hunts out for each year.
Yeah. Austin Atkinson here. Lived in Southern Utah for about 8 years, working here at the Huntin Fool. And I love taking my kids hunting, taking my wife hunting when she comes with, and helping people plan more hunts. So glad to be here tonight. Let's see here. Few things we want to consider. So what we're trying to do here is bring you through this whole application strategy. There's a lot of noise in the industry. There's a lot of noise in the hunting space about where to hunt, how often you should do it, and how to do it right, if you will. And what we like you to consider is you start having to ask yourself, who am I? Who am I as a hunter? What do I want to be? What are my goals? And we want you to realize you need to decide that first before we start looking at states and species and draw odds and everything else. So a few things to consider before anything right out of the gate. And this helps us when people come to Huntin Fool and say, I've decided on answers to some of these top questions. Now help me further my search. So we want you to consider your calendar, your weapon choices, partners and friends you hunt with, your location, which state do you live in, keeping in mind states that are around you, or where you'd like to visit. I'm not going to recommend you drive from Texas passing all these states that have elk in them to go to Washington to hunt. Like, don't pass all these opportunities. If you live in Texas, let's look at some states that are closer to you to go hunt. Your overall goals, I know some of us, want to achieve maybe the Super 10 or collect all 29 North American species. Some people just want to hunt more often, hunt elk every year, whatever it may be, you got to consider that.
And one thing I always say, like when it gets down to like goals and desired species and expectations, one thing to keep in mind, that's probably going to evolve throughout your hunting career. What goals you had starting out might not be the goals you have 10 years down the road. And that's okay. It's a ever evolving, type of sport. There's always something ahead of you. And I know when I was starting out, my goals weren't the same as they are now, and the species aren't either, so keep an open mind when you're going into this. And that's one thing that really does or can help you going forward, is keeping that open mind and knowing that things can change.
Yeah. You definitely got to consider your health and your age. If you're going to start playing in some of these point systems in the West, it's a hard truth, but you got to realize, how old am I? And when I get to a guaranteed or preference tag, how old will I be?
Yeah.
And don't, jump too fast into something without seeing light at the end of the tunnel. So budget, of course, is a big one. And we're going to talk about that. And then, of course, your trophy expectations. And maybe that evolves, like Garth said, you start out thinking you just need the biggest and the best and you'll wait for it. But maybe that evolves as you take your kids hunting, as you decide you like to be an archery hunter. Maybe your expectations get lowered, and that's okay. But no two hunters are the same. And that's what we really want to point out in this tool set we're going to go through tonight, is how to build a strategy for you, not for me, not for Garth, but for you as an individual hunter. So the two top ones we wanted to talk about, Garth, calendar is the first one. Why is it such a big deal?
Well, the reason the calendar is a big deal, obviously, when you have work, you have a family, things like that should take and probably do take precedence over your hunting. So you always have to consider what time of year you have, or if you're doing multiple hunts, you might have, say, a big hunt that you're planning this year in September. So the rest of your application strategy, it's got to evolve around that. Right? So that's why the first thing I always usually look at is my calendar and make sure that I can actually go on the hunt if I apply for it. I've been caught off guard before, and it sucks when you draw a tag and you look at your calendar and you're like, I can't do that.
It really does.
There's
a lot of us that just throw it at the wall, our applications, and say, oh, if I draw a tag, I'll figure it out. You might want to ask your significant other if that's really going to work.
I don't want to admit it, but I did schedule a bear hunt over my oldest daughter's graduation, high school graduation this year. And then I had to backtrack and figure out what dates I could actually make that happen. So it happened to me this year, and we're just barely starting.
it seems very basic to say, look at your calendar,
Yes.
but it really is important. And look at your multi-year calendar. If you've got family vacations, whatever it may be, that don't miss this holiday, don't miss this. How old are your kids going to be?
Right.
You got to check all of that and be realistic about your time off. Depending on what job you're in, what industry you're in, it might not be as flexible as you think, and you might want to give it more time. The second one, this is a big one, your budget. And we start very high up on this funnel process with budget. How do you set a budget? How expensive is it? Sometimes we take this for granted because we talk about hunting all day, every day. So we tend to allocate more of our personal funds to a hunting budget than maybe the next guy. We also can rattle off prices from all sorts of Western states just because we deal with it all the time. But if you're sitting there saying, I don't know how much this is supposed to cost, I don't know how much to give it, I don't know how much to allocate, how am I going to talk my wife into it? Well, that's a great question. And you need to ask yourself that.
I love this slide because honestly, it showcases perfectly what happens when you take an overall hunt budget that you've allotted for the year and you can't spend it all on applications, because if you spend it all on applications, you got nothing left to go hunting with. Once the time comes, you draw a tag or you go on your hunt. The perfect thing is that bottom tier right there, that bottom row, the online draw cost calculator. For someone that doesn't have the experience in knowing exactly what it's supposed to cost and you're brand new, that is a free online tool that you can get on there and actually play around with it, add elk, deer, sheep, and it can tell you the breakdown between what your upfront costs are, what your non-refundable costs are, what the actual tag is if you draw it, what that cost is. So it gives you a good breakdown of all the different states, and you can play around with that so you can adjust that application budget and your hunt budget.
Yeah. So my example here, we said, okay, a $5,000 annual hunt budget.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely want to break that down monthly, save up for that. Don't just look at it as an annual goal that you might not reach. Break it down monthly, break it down to paycheck, save that up. So for example, if you save $5,000, set that aside for your hunt budget, I would like to see only 10% of that go towards applications, meaning non-refundable licenses, building points, everything we're talking about tonight, because I want you to save enough of that budget to actually go on hunts. Don't get in this point paralysis like we've talked about before, where you're just building points forever and never committing to actually going. There's no reason to not go on multiple hunts every year, even with a smaller budget. So out of that 90% that's actually going on the hunt, that's everything from the actual tag, travel, fuel, food, everything that it takes to go and have that experience. So don't over allocate to applications is my point. Let's get some time in the field.
And $500 can non-refundable application fees can get you in a surprising amount of states.
Sure. Depending on which species you want.
Yep.
Here we said you could apply for elk in 2 to 3 states, and for the rest of your budget, you could go on 2 elk hunts every year. So don't be scared of going and actually doing it. We wanted to call out here real quick. We have done a couple past master classes on the best bang for your buck, our favorite states based on your budget. We also did one on point paralysis, getting stuck in that. I got all these points. I don't want to burn them. I don't want to lose them. Well, you just need to go and you need to actually hunt. So don't forget to check back to those. They're available on the onX YouTube channel, and you can reference those back.
It'll definitely help you on just your overall, once you figure this out, once you get through this, developing that strategy.
That's right. So for this presentation, we wanted to say, okay, take those questions that we asked you in the beginning, and let's give you some example answers of what that may look like for you. So we're going to make some assumptions, how I want you to answer these. Okay, your calendar, October works. It's important to keep track of what is the date now. Have you missed the deadline? Is it still open? Okay, it's late March. Today, I've got a little bit of vacation. I'm an archery hunter. My realistic goals, I want to draw my bow back on a bull elk. That's a great goal if you're just starting out. Your desired species is obviously elk. You've got a couple points, none in Montana, one in Wyoming, 2 in Colorado. And you set that budget to go on the hunt. I've got $2,000. But my dreams or my expectations, it's not a 350 bull. I just want to stock 6-point bulls. These are the kind of answers we're looking for when we start our consultations. They're very concise. They're not too lofty of goals, I would say. They're based on reality of what you're looking to do in your hunting career. So first things first, what you can do as a Huntin Full member, you can call and talk to an advisor. You've answered these questions, which we just went through. Now, I don't know what state to go to. What I can go on and I can request to talk direct with a hunt advisor like Garth.
And it really does help. I mean, a lot of times I take calls from members that realistically haven't even hunted out west yet. And they're still trying to wrap their head around the state draws, where they should be putting their time. But they had enough sense where they build a couple points, like you said, and now they have something to work with. And then they can talk to one of us here and we can help them figure out, okay, which state are you looking at now? Because realistically, just because you have 5 points in one state doesn't necessarily mean that's the best state you should be going to. It could be an area where you have 1 point or 2 points or a state like that. Because now if you start going past that 2-point level, you might just be keeping pace with those hunts and never really reach a better hunt than you could have drawn then. Whereas the other state in 5, maybe you're getting closer to drawing another hunt. So that's where we can help narrow it down a little bit for you, point you in the right direction, and give you a little better idea of what states you need to be focused on with the amount of points you have or are going to have in the future.
It's a very unique business that we have here at Huntin Full, and that we get to research this full time and talk on the phone, email, however we can chat with members to help them find hunts, because no 2 answers are the same for 2 hunters. Everybody's individual.
Mm-hmm.
So we really enjoy that part. If you don't feel like calling in, like, I don't know, I want to search on my own. Maybe I'm scared to talk to Garth. He's big and intimidating. I want to just do some more looking on my own. What is the process? Well, everybody who is an onX Elite member gets free access to the Huntin Full digital membership, the e-magazine. So this is actually a printed magazine that we print every month. But what we do a couple weeks before the print version shows up, we take a PDF version and break it into our electronic version, which is available online to everybody. So literally the same data that's being shipped out to the print copies to Huntin Full membership is available in its entirety on the website. It's literally as easy as going in, validating your onX Elite account. You come over here to your dashboard on the Huntin Full website, click on this first button that says online magazine. You say, well, is this a magazine where I'm just reading hunting stories? No, it is not. We all have seen too many of those. You're not going to find this magazine at Walmart, Barnes and Noble, whatever other bookshops are still in business. You won't find it there. You're going to find it electronically first. And if you subscribe, you can get the print. But every issue is different. And what you'll see in the bottom corner of every one of these magazines is the state information that's contained therein. So we match the e-magazines with the upcoming state deadlines so that you have time to find that magazine, read it, comprehend it, pick a hunt before you have to apply. So every month changes based on what state's coming up next.
And one important thing to remember is if you go into your account and you get on the online magazine, you can also go back into prior years and look at those past magazines. So let's say we don't have an updated version. So we're not at, I think we just barely released April, but we don't have our May issue out. But you want to research some Wyoming deer and antelope options, you can go into 2022 and kind of get an idea of what's available there. I mean, there's always going to be some changes, but that's important to remember. So even if you sign up late, you can still go back in prior years and you can get some of that information and actually have that going forward and just further some of your research.
That's
and
right.
I was that guy for a long time. I mean, I had a Huntin Full membership. I only called in a few times, but I like to do a lot of my own research too, but it definitely helps.
I just answered that question online here. Somebody was asking about Arizona deer information. And I want to point out that the magazine basically is pegged to the application periods. And so our data comes out, we're constrained by the timeline that the states issue tag allocations in many cases and data, because we want to give you the freshest data possible for the upcoming year. And so that Arizona deer and sheep information specifically will be available in the June issue of the magazine. But if you want a head start on your research, so stay tuned for that one to come out live for this year's data, but go back and look at the previous 3, 4, 5 years of June magazines.
Oh, it's such a useful tool because you can look at
Spot trends.
exactly. Yep. Harvest success. You can do all of that.
Once you click on a magazine, so for example, here I've clicked on the March issue, which I'm told contains the upcoming Montana deadline, you get to what we call a state section. So everything you see in our e-magazine that's available to you is data from last year, meaning all the photos, all the input is based on the 2022 season. There's nothing old, there's nothing outdated in here. Our hunt advisors create this content every year in a timely manner for the deadline. So in the beginning, the first few pages of the state section, you can read through all the details of the draw, how the odds work, how the fees work, how to apply as a party, all the little nuances you need to know. Think of it as a Cliff Notes version of the regulations. No one wants to read Montana's printed regulations. If you've ever seen them, they are a disaster and you need a magnifying glass. So we'll tell you what you need to know as you're looking at that state. And then as you go through the intro, now you get to the hunt code section. So this is where we rank our hunts. So you'll see the top of this table is Montana's top archery elk hunts. And so we have analyzed, crunched all the numbers, got our draws from Top Rut, put them all in here, and wrote our personal comments on if the unit may be for you, what to look for, is there access, is there not, what size of bulls to expect, because we're looking at elk hunts here, anything we think is relevant for that. I'll zoom in on one of these units or one of these tables here. You can see a little better. We're going to show you the dates, the number of proposed permits. We gave some sample draws based on your point level, and then our comments for that hunt.
Yeah.
Everything you need to decide, is this one I need to research further into, right?
Yeah. And you might take a look at that. And when we go through and we start talking about season dates, obviously Montana has one of the most liberal season dates of all states, as far as once you get the tag, you can pretty much go whenever you want with, within reason of weapon, but you can go down through there and automatically I'll probably eliminate some of those from your application portfolio. And then you can take a look at the ones that do fit within the dates, then go through the comments and then actually figure out if you've got the odds, or the points to draw.
That's right. So this tool is going to help you shop through hunts. We're going to give you our take on the unit overall, big picture of how the herd is for elk, what's new, what's changed. It's very updated and it's timely. And this is the way that I find hunts in states I'm not as familiar with, and we're learning as we go.
Yep.
Quick reminder before we jump to the next one, put your questions in the Q&A at the bottom, not in the chat if you can. That helps us out. We'll get to them. Okay, so I've now read the Montana section. I've read the Colorado section. I've decided, okay, Montana's probably for me. I want to go hunt there for archery elk. I've identified a few different hunts by reading your comments in the e-magazine. Now it's time to go to Top Rut. Can I even draw these hunts? I saw some sample odds in the Huntin' Full e-magazine, but obviously we can't fit all the charts, all the tables and draw odds in the pages of a PDF. So here we go. We're headed over to Top Rut. We're going to use the filter and save tools primarily, right? These tools are awesome. So when you come into Top Rut, which is free with your onX Elite membership, you validate over, you can select the state, the species, are you resident or not? And then it's going to sort all of the hunts that are available under that category. So you see right here, I'm under Montana elk, I'm under archery permits. These are limited draw permits. Montana's a little bit complicated where you have to draw the general tag, and then you can go in for the limited, which we did cover extensively in a previous masterclass.
Yep.
But a simple way to look at top rut is I got all the hunts listed here from the best odds to worst. That's how I'm sorted. Well, I've got a list here of units that I was interested in. I marked the star next to them. That star becomes critical because now it'll save it over here on the left where you can see my saved hunts. So I saved 4 units that looked interesting to me. Now that's good. I like that. But I want to know my points. What are my true odds? And this is where Top Rut really, really shines, is you can put in your draw odds and see what your actual odds would be. So assuming you had 5 points, it's going to change the draw odds.
Yep.
And now you can sort it by, see if I apply for unit 690 down here at the bottom, I've got a pretty slim chance at 3%. This is taking into account the squaring of your points. I mean, it's as realistic odds as there can be. And now you can see if you should block out your time window or not.
The other nice thing I like about this is you can jump around a little bit and sort that whatever way you want. You know, you can sort it by alphabetically by unit, as far as by the number of tags drawn. A lot of times on some of these states where there's an overwhelming amount of hunts and I'm looking for a hunt specifically, but I don't know what the odds are, I'll usually go in and just hit the unit and I'll sort them alphabetically. That way I can run down, find the hunt that I'm looking for, or the hunt code that I'm looking for, and I can run over and see their odds. So I like the feature. You can jump around and sort it however fits you best.
That's right. And sometimes these tables get so long with so
Yes.
many units. That's where I use the star, the save feature, to save them over.
Yep.
Another feature you can use is the filter button. Sometimes overlooked, but don't forget about the filter. You can put in your minimum draw threshold, how many points you're okay with, hunt dates that you're willing to start, whatever it may be, and then view the results and it'll change them. You can also pop over to map view instead of list view and see a visual, simple visual of where those units are. Obviously, these ones that I've narrowed down are pretty close together in Northeast Montana. But there's a way to use this. If you just go to draw odds right out of the gate, sometimes that can be discouraging and you're looking at all these horrible odds and like, I don't even know if these units are the ones I want, or, oh, there's really good odds in these units. Well, they might all be private land or not the hunt for you. So we want you to come at it with a little more research before you just dive in.
Yep. Then you can be a little bit more pointed in your searches. It's not going to take you as long to weed through all of those draw odds because now you're only looking for specific areas. And you never know, you might catch one that you're like, oh, wow, that doesn't take very many points to draw. Let me go back in and see exactly what this is. May turn out to be something good, may not, but at least you have an idea of where to start when you get into that draw odds.
That's right. Now, one of my favorite parts, I've narrowed it down to a couple of units. You saw I had 4 saved units on my top rut. Now, this is what I call flying. I'm not a pilot and I can't fly inherently, so I get to fly with my onX. Right. So now is my turn to go to onX web map. Sometimes I do it on my phone when I, maybe laying in bed, can't fall asleep, whatever it may be. I'm going to research those units, but wherever you are, you have access to your onX to start flying around those units that you've marked. And there I'm turning on all the good layers. I'm turning on private lands. I'm turning on government lands. I want to see where the public is and make sure I've got my elk units on. This is one of those units we were talking about in Northeast Montana. Because I'm in Montana, I'm going to go through all the Montana layer options to make sure I got the right ones. Montana block management, that's public access to private land. That's an important one. And I'm just trying to get a feel. I'm not planning my hunt at this stage because I haven't even drawn the tag. I'm just comparing unit 411 to unit 700. And I'm bouncing around to see which unit looks scary. Right.
See, and I usually like to have the fire layer on when I'm in this process. I don't think it's on because I think it burns everywhere in Montana. There's just a big puff of smoke about July and August that just hovers.
Especially out here.
Yes.
We're looking right here.
But I usually like to turn on the burn layer because then I can kind of identify what year that fire took place, how good that habitat should be or that regrowth should be coming into it. That helps me narrow it down. If I've got 2 similar type units, I can always look, and I'll probably err on the side of going to where that burn is. If it's a fresh, good new burn, no, there's going to be at least, and that might even attract some of those animals from the other unit into it.
My suggestion is turn on a layer at a time when you're
Yeah.
in these units and play with them. There's so many new layers that have been added, the trees and the habitat
Mhm.
crops. There's so many things you can do, but spend some serious time comparing unit to unit as you're narrowing down your special list to decide where you're going to apply for and hopefully draw. Let's talk about a scouting trip.
And I think this scouting trip, realistically, what we're talking about here
It's like a
is,
pre-scouting.
yes, this isn't like I've got the tag and I'm going to scout the animal I'm going to hunt.
Right.
We talk about this all the time because there's so many other opportunities there are to get out in the woods, and especially if you're looking at drawing tags in some of these other states, or just the potential of. There's plenty of reasons, and we listed them on here for you to actually go there. While you're there, you can do one of these things, like you can shed hunt fish, you can hunt predators. You know, we talk all the time about going there for hunting a different species, and while you're there, maybe figuring out a little bit more about, you know, the species you're actually scouting for.
Right, exactly. I think the main reason to do this, oftentimes we get, especially like spring black bear, a lot of the western states have black bear seasons, and it's a great opportunity to come out, literally get your boots dirty, have a hunt, actually have a tag in your pocket, understand access, glassing points, all of that kind of stuff. So figuring out ways to kind of be creative in your scouting and bring your whole family. Like that's the other piece too, right? It's kind of a selfish endeavor. A lot of times when we plan our own hunts and we leave, we go do our things. I mean, if you're lucky, like I was when I was raising my kids, we homeschooled them for a long time and I drug them everywhere.
Yeah.
But most people can't and won't do that. And so this is an opportunity to come out in the summer, late spring for a lot of these spring bear hunts, etc. So I think this is kind of that pre-season or pre-tag scouting trip.
Even if you're just simply looking at access, road access, that's another great thing. You can get in there on those spring bear trips. Yeah, maybe there might be some snow drifts that aren't going to be there when you get there during your season, but at least you can get an idea of roads and access and things like that. Maybe there's a piece of property that you thought you could cross and you can't.
That's right. As we're comparing units, we're trying to help you think outside the box a little bit. And this one seems to catch people by surprise every year, is other hunting pressure. That maybe you're looking at a hunt, it's only got 75 permits. Sounds great. You've got tens of thousands of acres to hunt with just 75 other hunters. However, what you may be missing is how many recreationalists are there. Is it Colorado? And it's super popular with all the 14ers and the hikers and the peak baggers and campers. And you may show up to the trailhead thinking, man, it's just me and my lucky permit holders. And whoa, everybody showed up. It happens a lot.
Oh, I'll tell you a funny story about Colorado. When I was up there on an elk hunt, muzzleloader elk hunt, I had just shot my bull. And I had made my way over to my bull, verified that he was down, and I was walking back to get my pack, and boom, I heard another shot, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's like right where I just shot my bull. What happened? And I knew all the elk had took off. I get over there, and there's a bluegrass hunter that was just, and he was 1.5 miles back in there, but that's other things. I'm glad I got my bull down before he walked through the middle of that flat blasted bluegrass, but that could have went totally sideways had I been 10 minutes later, on that stock. So there's always going to be some overlap, and sometimes it's recreational hikers, sometimes it's another hunt. That's some of the things you can look into a little bit, but yeah, it happens.
Yeah, literally that area that we were just looking at is the Charles M. Russell Wildlife Refuge out in central Montana. Basically, that's kind of the analogy we've been chasing through. And not only, like if you're archery hunting, it goes through mid-October in Montana. So you have the rifle opener for antelope that happens 1 week prior to the end of your season. So all of a sudden, and there's antelope and elk and mule deer all kind of interspersed amongst each other out there. So you've got an antelope hunt that opens. You also have like the pheasant opener that happens right during there, right in the middle of where a lot of the elk like to be down in the bottom of the coulees at night. So yeah, there's little things like that you want to be sure and dial in and be aware of. Otherwise, you can be super disappointed after spending all that time and money and research getting there.
This comes up a lot in Colorado, Utah, where they run all the seasons over top of each other. So you check your elk licenses, realize there may be cow licenses going on at the same time. There may be deer hunts running the same exact season dates and doe deer hunts running the same. So what it could turn into tens of thousands of hunters in the field at the same time in your area of the state.
Yeah,
Not just your tag that you are looking at. Don't get tunnel vision thinking this is my hunt. I'm gonna be the only one there.
you run into that in Colorado all the time, especially on the second and third rifle hunts. They're called a combined rifle for a reason, because they have a combined season, elk and deer at the same time. And yep, you're right. They run doe hunts, they run cow hunts, they run bull hunts
Same
and
time.
buck hunts, all at the same time.
They love it.
And you probably waited 15, 20 years to draw that tag, and you're one of 50 buck hunters, but you're not the only hunters.
Might be discouraging. Yeah, just go into it eyes wide open.
Correct.
Couple disclaimers we want to make. A lot of guys have asked, what about data from the state that I can analyze? And we want you to use that data. We look at some of it, but definitely take it with a grain of salt. So bull to cow ratios or buck to doe ratios, we tend to not rely on them too much. Depending on how that state does it, especially if it's a state that can't do aerial surveys, they don't really know their populations that well. I mean, there's not a better way to put it.
Well, and not every year is like this year out west where we have an abundance of snow. Like this year, I know most game and fish agencies that fly to do their aerial classifications or their counts, they're out there right now trying to fly for those numbers, because this is the most opportune time to find those animals and get an accurate number. But most years aren't like this, and it can be dang hard to track down and actually verify and spot those animals if you don't have a white background. So, and they're still going to print numbers. It doesn't matter how many they count.
Yeah, and I grew up in Salmon, Idaho, and that part of Idaho in particular, every winter we inherit a whole bunch of Western Montana's elk for the winter. And so it's completely and artificially enhanced, so to speak. Those numbers just aren't even realistic for either state at that point, because Montana's missing them and Idaho got them. So, we do run into a lot of people who are like, I found this online resource that's all about buck to doe ratios and, population counts. Just use caution in that. And then harvest success, I don't know if you already touched on that or not. I was busy typing answers, but harvest success is really misleading in a lot of states, because most states do not require hunters to report their harvest, or their not just their harvest, but their hunt outcome, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And it drives us crazy at Huntin' Fool, because we feel like it's 2023. If you're listening, get your stuff together, make this happen. You've got states like Idaho, New Mexico, Nevada, and some others that really have been doing it a long, long time.
Yeah.
And the data is way better in those states. But then you got other states where they just don't require it, and yet they still publish it. And so it's super deceiving to the potential hunter.
Yeah, tough ones are like Utah, where they actually do require a mandatory harvest on your limited entry hunts, but not on your general season harvest, deer harvest, or your general season elk harvest. But they still print the same, numbers as if they were all factually correct.
Yep.
So some of them are, and some of them aren't. And one thing, if you are using the harvest success that I've noticed, as far as trends go, if you have a larger sample size, and the division usually does their due diligence as far as reaching out and collecting some of that, usually you get a more steady number and at least a better representative of what that is. But when you get to those units that just have very few tags in it, man, you can see 60% one year and 20% the next, and then 80 and then 0. Very inconsistent.
It is. Yeah. So, we talk to biologists all the time, and they're a wealth of information depending on the state and where you're at. But just if you're watching this, you're an onX Elite member, you're doing your research, like you can count yourself on the positive side of harvest success anyway. So don't get discouraged looking at 10 or 20% harvest, saying, oh, that's not very good. Well, we're probably talking right now to the 10 or 20%.
I can tell you that when I went into my first Colorado over-the-counter elk hunt, I was very discouraged, and I did not think the outcome was going to be great. Just because you take a look at the harvest success, which is, by the way, a voluntary harvest, voluntary harvest reporting, you go into that and it was like most of them are 8, 12, 14% harvest for high ones for the rifle hunt. But I can tell you, it was very seldom that we didn't at least find some legal bulls.
That's right. So take it with a grain of salt. Okay, now we picked a unit. Now we got to actually apply or buy the license we're going after. So quick shout out to some of the other master classes we've done here. If you want to deep dive into a certain state, like we spent over an hour on just Colorado, how to apply there, Montana, deer and elk, Idaho and Alaska. Like we look at those states individually and go through everything you need because they are so different. So make sure you reference back to some of those and to the e-magazine for that state to help you actually submit the application. Make sure you do it properly.
I think we'll have one coming up on Utah on the 3rd.
Yep, coming up soon. So now you've applied, you picked your unit, you've drawn the tag. What's the first thing you do first? Well, you celebrate first
Yeah.
because you've got the tag in hand.
Yeah.
It's real, it's coming together. What's next?
So this tool right here is a tool that's nice that as an onX Elite member, you have access to, and that's what we call the previous tag holder list with Huntin Fool. And basically you can jump online, you can request that online, which is nice. You can just go to your HF dashboard, click on that, and then you can enter in exactly what tag you've drawn. And what we will do is we then send you a list of prior members that have actually had that tag in their hand the prior years. You can give them a call, you can email them, pick their brain. All of those people that are on that list have already opted in and said, hey, we are helping the next person in line. We're basically paying it forward. So that's what you're doing when you sign up for that list.
Yep.
So don't be surprised when the very next year someone calls you and says, hey, I drew this tag. What did you find in it last year? But it's a very, very good resource to actually find exactly, like, talk to people that have boots on the ground.
We've actually created lifelong hunting buddies out of that. The number of people that are like, yeah, I wound up connecting with a guy that drawn the tag the year before. We realized that we were both on deck to draw a tag in Colorado the next year, and we planned to hunt together and wound up sharing a camp, and they're lifelong pals. So it's a pretty cool resource, peer-to-peer resource.
And because we don't allow it for shopping of hunts or
Right.
looking for hunts, that keeps it to just people that have actually drawn the tag. You've got it. And you can't just call a bunch of people seeing where the biggest bulls are.
Right.
You know, it's not for research, it's for your hunt and helping plan your hunt. Now is when I like to come back to my onX. This is a screenshot of a hunt that I did a couple of years ago. And now I'm going to mark up everything that looks interesting to me. So I'm going to adjust the 3D. I'm going to adjust everything, the 3D exaggeration. I'm going to mark everything that looks like water, might be water, you know, draw polygons around areas that are interesting to me. Like
Glassing points, like anything that's going to give you an advantage from that scouting point of view that you think is going to give you an advantage on that hunt, pin it.
access is super important. So anywhere that I can, you know, access a road, I've got my motor vehicle use purple roads turned on here. I'm gonna mark all those access points and see where I can get closest to where I want to be. So I will mark up this much on a unit before I even step foot in the unit. Just, I really enjoy this planning part of a hunt, and it will pay huge dividends when you get there to have this planned out and marked.
And obviously you've got some of the same icons that have different colors. So color coordinate, I mean, however that is that you were marking that, I mean, each one of those means something different. And as long as you know that, like, you can just go in there and basically mark that thing up.
Yeah, I know. And I've changed my color scheme all the time over the years, right? Sometimes just onX red, but sometimes yellow is like a glassing point I wanted to go to, but I haven't been there yet. Turquoise colors like an elk I've seen once I got there. I mean, I've changed them all the time. There's not enough consistency, but once you get it how you like it, it's hard to change.
I was gonna say, I was gonna apply for that unit, seeing all those albino elk that you came in contact with over there. There's a pile of them.
Another thing we want to talk about in your search, obviously in the past, forums and groups, you know, everybody went to forums to share data, but realize Google can crawl a lot of that. So definitely take it with a grain of salt. One thing we've really liked to do is go to YouTube and start watching videos. Now, I'm not just saying jump on, watch everybody else's hunting videos, try to figure out where they are. That is not what I'm saying. We're saying look at other recreationalist videos. Kayakers, hikers, the Super Cub airplane guys take really cool videos, horseback rides, anything where they're giving away a location, so you can get an idea of what that looks like. You know, what do those peaks actually look like in August or September where you're going to be hunting, or what does floating the river in Montana in October look like? Is there ice on the shore? What's the riverbank, the lake, fishing videos? Think outside the box of how you can get some first person view of the unit that you're headed to before you go.
And trust me, we as hunters, I think, take pride in, hey, we know all the access points. We've done all the research. We know it. But I'll tell you what, some of those hippies that hike around in there and have bike and go, I mean,
spent
they
way more time than we ever.
100%. So never be afraid to look at some of those access points, look in the background and be like, wait, let me pause that right there and see what that trailhead marker is. Where is that? Because they're hitting them all. Every one of them. If there's access through a piece of property, they know about it.
Yeah, it's true. So look outside the box, try to get as much data as you can together, mark it all in your onX web map, right? That's the key. At this point, what you can do is you can actually call back for a personal consultation. So Garth maybe helped you find the unit to apply for, but now you've got some more detailed questions about your upcoming hunt because you have a unit, you have a tag in hand. So where should I scout? Do you have any notes saved to our database here, our maps of where I can go? Special gear advice. We get a lot of gear questions. What would we look for if Garth was going to glass this unit around this burn? What would he do? So you can have that conversation with us as the hunt advisors about your ABC plan. This is where I'm thinking of going to first. Do you agree? Do you have any feedback for me? Do you have any experience there? And we probably do. We've built a wealth of database here with our full-time hunt advisors. Got a lot of information to help you out.
Best case scenario, one of us here have actually hunted the unit and we can touch base on just what we found in that area. We're not going to know everything about the unit, but at least we can relay what we have found out. Most of the time, even if we haven't hunted it, we've probably talked to someone who has hunted it, talked to a biologist that's been in there, or spent some time with even the National Forest or BLM guy, ranger. We will have a little bit on that unit, but best case scenario, we might have even hunted it.
Yep. Never know. Now it's time to plan your actual scouting trip and go, right? Get out there. Definitely want to call out a few resources that onX and Huntin have come together to put great resources together. The onX blog, we wrote a lot of those application strategies and special articles there. Best of the West, how to apply as a party, youth applications. All of those are available on the Huntin website as well, which you have access to. We've gone into more details like how to cross water in the backcountry, how backcountry first aid, using horses if you haven't been on them much before, all that good stuff.
Yeah,
So,
it's just something that we try to put together to just kind of put more tools in your toolkit and give you more resources to lean on. Once you get that tag, and let's say you got a Stopping the Bleed article, hey, no one wants to cut themselves, but by hell, if you know how to stop it, you're in good shape.
Fitness. The hunt is a couple
Yeah.
months out, Garth. It's going to come up sooner than I thought. What do you suggest?
Well, hopefully, if it's a couple months out, you've already been preparing. One of the biggest things that I preach and I've had to live by, I'm not over the hill by any stretch, but at the same time, hey, you got more gray than I do. But it got so hard for me to get into shape that I found out that it was a lot easier to stay in shape than it was to get into shape. So hopefully you've already been doing some of this in the off season while you've been applying and looking for some of these other things, shopping for your hunts. But some things that you can obviously do when you start out in training, there's good fitness programs out there. There's lots of different planning. There's lots of different ideas that you can gain from these and actual workouts that you can go through in these routines. I mean, I think you picked up CrossFit lately. You've been doing CrossFit a little bit. How's that been?
Look at him smirking.
It hurts.
It hurts. Yeah, I
No,
never
like-
thought I'd see the day where Austin Atkinson
No.
was hitting the CrossFit box.
But to Jared's point, he brought up you're building mental toughness, and do I go to CrossFit and do my program to build muscle? I mean, it'd be nice, but really it's sticking to something that hurts, that doesn't feel right, that I gotta wake up and I gotta make myself do it. I feel like I'm building that mental toughness so that when I have to chase that elk up that next rise, I'm gonna say this is gonna hurt, but it's gonna take me 15
I'm not
minutes and
gonna
I'm
quit.
gonna do it.
Yeah, the example I used when we were talking about this slide in particular, I was with a good buddy of mine that the night before, and we were like 4 or 5 miles in Montana, and we ran into one of the biggest, best public land elk herds I've ever seen in my life. Like 2 head, 40 bulls, like it was unreal. And we left him there at dark. Next morning at 3:30 in the morning, I knocked on his door and was like, "You ready to go?" And he's like, "I'm just too tired. I can't go." I had the best day of public land hunting in my life, probably that next day. I didn't kill anything because there wasn't anything in there that was what I was looking for in that particular year, but still probably the most memorable day I'll ever have. But
Yeah.
he couldn't get out of bed because he wasn't mentally tough enough. And it starts with that fitness regimen. It really does. Yeah. Hopefully he's not watching this. Guess you'll know who I mean.
You're getting a phone call.
This is one of our final slides. We're just all of this application strategy. Keep in mind there is icing on the cake, and that's go on the hunt and have your best time. Use all the tools to your advantage. There's no question that we can't find an answer for you or help you. Between onX, Huntin Fool, and all the tools that are included, you deserve to go have a great hunt.
Yep.
So don't forget to do that. If you want to upgrade to get the printed magazine, we do offer an onX Elite Member Special and get you those pricings, but you get the digital membership for free. If you upgrade to the printed or hunt consultations, that's just $85 a year. You can get the whole thing for $128 a year. We believe it's the best thing you can add to your hunt budget every year. And we will personally help you have a successful year. We stand behind that.
Yep.
I'll jump back in here. This has been amazing information, guys. I really appreciate it. I love some of the tips that I don't think I've heard too often, like scanning YouTube and some user videos to see what kind of intel you could learn. I love the bit about fitness. I actually just started my Mountain Tough spring training. So today was day 1. So I'm gearing up to get ready for my fall hunt. I think that's really important for people to know. Anyway, really, really great information. So as we start winding this down, guys, just want to remind you, we do have some other upcoming master classes. You can find those on onxmaps.com/hunt/masterclass. The Huntin Fool guys will be back with us just next Monday to talk about the Utah draw. We've got an app 101 coming up a few days later next week. And then we're going to talk about new features for spring in mid-April. We'll also be adding more master classes as is prudent. If you could go to the next slide, as you guys know, if you're an onX Elite member, you get access to Huntin Fool, like we talked about, the Huntin Fool digital membership. You also get access to Top Rut, which is the in-depth draws tool that the guys from Huntin Fool showed today when they were looking at draws. You get access to Hunt Reminder, which is a tool that helps you set up reminders to help you not miss any draws or special raffles. So you can make sure that you hit the states and the species you're looking for. Obviously, you get onX Hunt, and there's a ton of application research layers that really help. The guys at Huntin Fool showed a bit of those, but other layers like wildfires, public walk-in access areas, some really great layers that are useful outside of hunting season while you're looking to apply to units and learn the unit a little bit. And then, of course, the onX blog, like the Huntin Fool guys said, they've actually produced some of the content on our blog that's actually really great. For application season. We've also got a lot of other application season tips and advice from the pros here at onX, Top Rut, Huntin Fool, Hunt Reminder. So make sure you head on over to the blog and check that out. For being here, if you guys are not an onX Elite member, we're going to offer a promo code for you guys. So if you guys want to sign up for onX Elite, you'll get 30% off your first year. So that brings it down about $30. And the promo code there is application strategy. So you can enter application strategy anytime between today and the end of the month. So 3/31 at onxmaps.com. Just to remind you guys, though, this only works if you go to onxmaps.com and sign up through onX Maps. This doesn't work if you're signing up through Apple or Google Play stores. Also, we're going to put a link in the chat right now. If you guys want, you can sign up. We're going to give away 10 of these hats, one I'm wearing today. Pretty cool onX swag. So sign up there and you'll have a chance. You'll be entered tonight by midnight. So for anyone watching this later on the YouTube channel, this will be over. Obviously, no purchase is necessary. I'll read the fine print here for you guys. An onX account is required. You must be 21 years of age to win. One entry per person, and we must receive the entries tonight. Oops, the date is wrong on there, not January 24th, but tonight, May 28th. So if you guys want to sign up for that, we'll notify you guys by email. And again, the link there is going to be in the chat. So now we got a little bit of time left. We'll go over to some Q&A. I know there's been a lot of questions coming in through the chat, and many of them have been answered, but we've got a couple left that we'd like to answer live. So first off, we've got a question that's still hanging here for the Huntin' Fool guys. In Colorado, looking at some units, I'm seeing some people are getting some third choice tags while not everyone is getting a second choice. Assuming second choice gets priority over third choice, why is this happening? Anyone from Huntin' Fool?
Archery elk in unit 75 in 2022.
Oh, I got you.
Second choice, yeah.
So I'm just going to read through this.
I think you could probably just talk about how the draw works in Colorado.
Yeah,
And
what
answer it.
confused me is where it said 101 and 178 third choice, 28 and 101. I'm assuming that's referring to the resident and non-resident tag allocation number. Is that what I'm guessing? But what I can tell you is basically down through that, the reason you're getting third, fourth choice, people that are getting that hunt or selecting it, or at least getting on that application, Colorado goes in and they look at everyone's first choice on their application before they move on to anyone's second. That's the first choice is the one that's going to utilize your points. It's going to take your points if you actually draw it, because it's using your points to acquire that tag. Once they get past that, any hunt that has not had enough first choice applicants to exhaust the number of permits then rolls to a second choice. Anyone that has listed that hunt as a second choice on their application, then will get their application pulled and looked at when it gets to that point. Now, if there's still permits remaining after everyone's second choice has been gone through, and there's still permits going into the third, then they'll look at everyone's third choice and they'll see if there's, how many, and let's say there's 78 tags left and there's 150 people that applied for it. Then they'll go in and they'll actually issue those tags now, or exhaust those next 78. Now, sometimes what you can run into, without going too deep into the weeds, once you get the second, third, and fourth choice, even sometimes on the first choice, but Colorado can actually issue more tags to non-residents in those choices because they're exhausting those tags. And if there's tags remaining, but there's more non-residents to put in for that second choice than residents, you might actually get more non-residents that get drawn on the second choice than you do residents. So I'm guessing that would answer those questions. I'm just trying to
I think the big takeaway is they look at the first choice only.
Right.
And if the tags aren't exhausted, then they move down through it. But the bottom line is some states will look, like New Mexico will look at your first, second, third choice before they move to the next applicant. In Colorado, they're going to look at the first choice only to start.
Yeah.
And then, and only if tags are left over after all those first choice applicants are exhausted, will they issue the second, third, and fourth.
And I'm kind of seeing here now. So basically, I think he was asking a question about if he's seeing some people getting their third choice that didn't, but they didn't select everyone in the second choice. And the reason that is because they're second choice applicants that drew their first, but they're still in there as a second choice. You know what I mean? But they no longer have a valid application because they already got drawn for their first. So they're just going to skip over those second choice applicants because they already have a tag, and then they'll move into the third choice. So I'm thinking that's what he was asking.
That's the right question. That is what he was asking.
That was a great answer and a tough question. Thanks for asking it, Robert. Another question I saw pop up a few times was, is there a benefit to applying as a group? I saw this pop up 2 or 3 times. Are your odds generally better or worse as applying for a group?
So what I would say, it depends on the state. In Wyoming, it's not worse, right? Because they'll over allocate licenses. So if you're only, say you put in as a group of 4, and there's only 2 tags left when your application gets pulled, they'll actually issue all 4 applicants on that party app tags. Where in other states, if you have that same scenario, they might not, well, they'll just pass over you. So they'll pull it up. They'll say there's only 2 tags left, but there's 4 people on this party application. We have to ditch this one and go to the next one because we won't over allocate those tags. So I guess in my opinion, in most circumstances, it doesn't help you in draw unless
It never helps you.
unless your buddy that you're applying with has 12 points and you. Oh, that's right. That's the only way.
Generally speaking, a party application never, ever, ever helps you. Unless again, you're averaging your points up in a state that does that. And keep in mind that a state like Colorado doesn't do that. They put you in with the lowest point total. So if Garth has 12 and I have 0, we go in with 0 for a party. So that, in that case, again, it hurts you. Generally speaking, it hurts you. Wyoming, it's neutral, and it never, ever helps you unless you're rounding up points in a state that does so.
Yeah, it's the only way that I ever really say, it's worthwhile to put in for a party is if everyone wants to go hunting together. We're either all going or none of us are going. By all means, put in, but
Well, the way to think about that too is there's one application that goes into the draw, even if there's 15 people on it, and I'm being that's hyperbole, but if there's 15 people on there, there's still only one application that goes into the draw. So there's going to be one number assigned to that application when they run the draw and try to figure out where you fall in the order of the draw.
And that's one big misconception that I think they think they have. If there's 4 people in that party, there's 4 applications that have that ability to grab it. That's not the case.
Correct.
So another one I saw that popped up a few times was, how come in Montana, it's often that you have better odds with 0 points than you would with 1 point?
I think I tried to answer that one in the chat several times. So I don't know if you can go back and look at the chat, and also we answered it in detail on the Montana webinar. But bottom line is Montana, for some stupid reason, reserves 25% of their combination licenses. So again, that's the deer combo, the elk combo, or the big game combo, which includes both a deer and an elk tag. 25% of those combination licenses are set aside for people with literally 0 points. So if you accidentally buy a preference point, and again, this is preference points that we're talking about, the previous fall, you cannot be considered in that 25%. It's people who truly have 0. And like last year or previously, it's been up to 70+% draws. So then we get people saying, well, why would I ever buy a preference point? They're $100. And I've got 70% odds without it, 0% with 1. Like with 1 point, you cannot draw the tag or the combo license. So I think the problem with that theory is I think we're going to see a drastic reduction in those draw odds over the next few years. As Idaho, Colorado, and these other states keep cutting tags, more people are getting wise to that. And I think they're going to flood that 0 point draw. So the better strategy, in my opinion, is go hunt Montana every other year, buy a point in the fall period that's open from July 1 all the way through December 31 now. Buy a point in that period. And then Montana is the only state that I'm aware of that gives you a point on the way into the draw the next spring when you apply for your Montana combination licenses. Buy another point. So you go in with 2. What were the odds this year? 98, 96%, whatever. So basically Montana's in every other state, in my opinion, if you want to guarantee it, or you can ride the pine, so to speak, and hope that you're in that 25% with 0 points.
And it's important to remember that this is only for general licenses because this scenario does not work for any of the controlled hunts.
Correct.
You do not get a better chance if you have 0 points going into the controlled hunt. Yes.
Yeah.
Did you guys see any questions in there that popped up that you felt like needed an answer?
Yeah, I think there was one on there. What are the main things I need to be looking for when deciding on what unit to hunt in Colorado for over-the-counter archery? Things like distance, terrain, doesn't seem to be a factor for this individual. Realistically, I think I think there's a couple things that you should look for. If you like to backpack, I would look for areas that offer that type of hunt. Like if you enjoy just getting back in there, I wouldn't focus solely on harvest success or how big a bull you're going to kill or how many people are in that unit, because honestly, most of those over-the-counter units in Colorado are all going to share similar features when it comes to that. But if you can isolate what type of hunt you want, meaning I want to stay in a hotel and ride out from the hotel and be within 30, 45 minutes from my actual hunt, then I would select units that have decent like Airbnbs or hotels or something like that in close proximity to where you're actually going to be hunting. Versus if you want to do a backpack hunt, I would definitely go in and look for areas that's got some pretty decent trail systems back into areas that might be a little more untouched, where you might not have as many people, that allows you to take advantage of the type of hunt you want. So that's really the only thing you can control there. And honestly, most of those units are going to share similar crowding, similar sized bulls, maybe a little better populations, but probably similar populations. All of those things are, and harvest success is probably going to be similar too.
Yeah, and again, that's one that's hard to understand in Colorado, right? The harvest success.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give Huntin Fool a little bit more props than Gart just gave us. Every year we write a state section for opportunity hunts in Colorado specifically. onX Elite members, again, can validate their Huntin Fool digital membership or please join Huntin Fool and get the discount that onX offers. But bottom line is you can access, we write up what we believe to be the best opportunity / OTC hunts in Colorado every single year. And I think we probably, I'm going to pat ourselves on the back. We do the best job of it out there. Because we work with outfitters, biologists, our own personal experience, our membership, and we have a vast membership that hunts Colorado every year. We rely on all of them to collate that data and write up what we believe to be your best options.
And we go on a lot of those over-the-counter hunts. I mean, all of us here in the office participate in them, maybe not every year, but as often as we can.
Yep.
We've got a question here for the onX guys, so I'll answer this one. Dave said he's waiting patiently for Top Rut to add Washington. So Dave, we are too. Our deadline to get Washington data was today, March 28th. So hopefully Washington send it over to us and we can start analyzing and get it up. We've got a little time before the Washington draw, which is May 24th, I believe. So as soon as we get that up, we will send out a comm letting people know that Washington is live. Huntin Fool guys, is there any other questions you want to snag? I'd like to do maybe one more and then we can call this thing a wrap.
I've had several questions about our filter tool on our map. And generally speaking, so several people have said it doesn't work. I ran a little test while we were having the webinar and it did work. What happens though is you've got states that call a rifle hunt and any weapon hunt. You've got states that call a rifle hunt, etc. And so you'll notice in the drop-down menus that there are multiple options that could be considered. There's also, like in Colorado, a lot of the hunts are either sex for archery, for elk, for example, right? And so if you put bull, and it's going to ignore all of the either sex options because we're copying what the state does. So if the filters aren't working on our map, which you can find on huntinfool.com/member/hunt planner, go in there and click on the filters. It's the best way to collate the data that we compile. If you're getting no results, you either have your trophy potential set too high, or you've got one of the other criteria for that particular state that is kind of in conflict with what the state language is. So if you're using that filter system, try a different drop-down selection, adjust your trophy potential, etc., and you'll get it to work. Again, we're just copying what the state's verbiage are.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's all we have time for tonight, guys. I really appreciate the Huntin Fool crew coming in and joining us. This was a fantastic webinar, tons of great information for you guys watching. If you want to share this with a friend, we will be posting this tomorrow on our YouTube channel over at onX. You can share that. You can go back and see past master classes. You can see all the ones the Huntin Fool guys have joined us for in the past. Point paralysis one that they did a couple weeks ago was fantastic as well. If you're considering collecting points or you've got a bunch of points, and they'll be back next week as well to talk about Utah next Monday. So go over to the onX website, onX.com, onxmaps.com/hunt/masterclasses. You can see the upcoming classes for April and register to join those. Thanks again, guys. Any last parting words?
Just thank you again. We really appreciate the opportunity for both the membership out there and working with onX. So thank you guys.
Yeah, it's been great doing these.
Yeah.
Good
All
luck.
right, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it, and it was awesome having you here. And thanks everyone for coming. We really appreciate your support. And please register for future master classes. I think that these are invaluable, especially this time of year when we're all trying to figure out how to apply to get our tags for the fall. All right, have a great evening, and I appreciate it. Thanks again.